Hello, I'm John Kneebone and welcome to the Mainline Baits Carp Fishing TV channel and a brand new series of how-to videos where we're going to take a look at different presentations and rigs to help you catch more fish. To kickstart the series, we're going to utilise the new Nut Crush mix and show you how to put together a high attract PVA stick. Okay, let's get started. First of all, you're going to need a proactive stick and bag mix like this. I'm using the Essential Cell flavour today, but you could use any of the flavours within the range, and you could also use one of our ground baits. These mixes help combine all the ingredients together and are packed full of attraction that will rise high into the water column, able to pull fish down from all levels. Next up, we have one of the new Power Plus particle mixes, the Nut Crush, which as the name suggests is a mix of crushed peanuts and tiger nuts. This will give our stick mix a larger food item that will sit around the hook bait for longer periods of time. To further boost the attraction of the mix, we're going to use a liquid additive, and I've chosen hemp seed oil. Not only will this hemp seed oil help combine all the ingredients together, but it will also release droplets of oil to the surface when fish are investigating the area, giving you that telltale flat spot. For this presentation, I'm using a simple hair rig. I'm using one of my favourite patterns of hook, a size 6 curved shank. To match the presentation nicely, the hook bait consists of a tiger nut, and I've utilised a nice little tip from Rob Burgess where I've added a super sweet zigger to the hook bait. It's dead easy to do, just simply drill out about 2/3 of the centre of the tiger nut to make a nice clean bored hole, and into that hole insert one of the super sweet ziggers, and as you can see, this is giving us some extra attraction and some visual stimulus. Close to the hook, just where I've put a break in a coated braid, I've then got a little bit of putty just to help the hooking potential of the rig. I've taken a little bit of wire from some lead core, wrapped that around the hook link and used that to secure the putty in place. I've then got 6 to 7 inches of coated braid to form the hook link. And at the other end of the hook link, I've tied a figure of 8 loop knot so this can be threaded through the stick and onto the terminal tackle. We're then going to need some PVA mesh to form our stick. This is a product that dissolves in water, so once the PVA stick hits a lake bed, the PVA dissolves and dispatches the contents around your hook bait. We're also going to use a PVA nugget. Again, this is another product that's made to dissolve in water. Finally, you'll need a pair of scissors and an open latch needle, and again you'll see how we're going to use these later on in the video. So let's begin putting our mix together. The first thing I'm going to do is add some of the stick and bag mix to an empty bowl or a mixing dish. Next, I'm going to add some of the crushed tiger nuts and peanuts from the Nut Crush mix, which will give us some larger food items. We recently made a bait focus video including the Nut Crush, so if you'd like more information about this product, I'll leave a link to that video. Now as you can see, I've got roughly a 50-50 ratio between the stick and bag mix and the crushed nuts. We can now mix these two ingredients together just so that we've got an even texture when it comes to making our stick. And we want to do this before we add a liquid additive. So there you can see we've got a lovely even mix now between the fine powders of the stick and bag mix and the pieces of crushed nut. The next stage is to add our liquid additive, the hemp seed oil. Now, when you start putting your mix together on a regular basis, you may work out quickly through eye how much liquid that you need to add. But if this is the first time you're putting a mix together, it's better to add the liquid a little at a time so that you can build up to the perfect consistency. So to begin with, I'll just add a few cupfuls of the hemp seed oil and then continue to add the liquid a little at a time so I can build up the moisture level within the dry ingredients. This way I don't make the mix too wet and potentially then have to add some more of the dry ingredients, increasing the overall quantity of the mix. So continue adding the liquid a little at a time and mixing thoroughly, making sure that there's no dry pockets of mix in the corners of the tub. Eventually the mix will become quite wet, sticky and tacky, and you'll know when you've added enough liquid because the mix will be quite clumpy when you squeeze it together. It'll actually be too clumpy to use within your PVA sticks. So now is the time to leave your mix to rest, and what I mean by that is you leave the mix for around about an hour or so, and that allows some time for the dry ingredients within the mix to absorb all the liquids that have been added. Okay, now that we've allowed the mix to rest for an hour or so, you can see it's no longer so wet looking, it's actually quite dry and it can break down really easily. Now we're ready to put together our stick, and the first thing I'm going to do is just take one of the PVA nuggets that I showed you earlier and simply cut it in half. This is because they're just a little bit too big for what we need straight out of the tub. You'll see in a little while this is a really important part of the process. Next we take our PVA funnel web mesh and insert that piece of nugget down into the tube. Using the plunger, just ensure the nugget is at the very end of the mesh tubing. Okay, now we can start adding some of the mix. And again, just like when we was adding the liquids, just add a little at a time. Once you feel you've got enough for a stick of maybe 2 to 3 inches long, insert the plunger into the tube, keep your finger or hand over the end and compress the plunger to make a compact stick of bait. Okay, so now we've formed our stick, we now need to seal the end. I'm just simply going to tie an overhand loop tight to the end of the stick. This might be a bit fiddly at first, but take your time, slowly teasing the PVA through the loop so you don't rip or tear it, making a knot. There we go, that's the stick, all sealed off at both ends. Now tie a second overhand loop, and don't forget the PVA melts in water, so make sure your hands are dry. Now grab your scissors and cut in between the 2 knots so that your stick is all formed and ready to go, but that you've also got your mesh tubing ready for making the next stick. Okay, with the stick made, it's now time to thread it onto our rig, and you may remember me showing you earlier the little piece of putty that I like to add to my hook link down near the hook. The reason for that bit of putty is it just adds a little bit of weight and resistance to what is essentially a very light hook bait. This helps the hook flip over quickly when it's sucked into the fish's mouth, giving you an aggressive hooking angle and hopefully ensuring that you get a nice strong hook hold. It's really important that we don't dislodge this piece of putty by pulling it inside the stick as we thread on the rig. So what I'm going to do is just push the latch needle into the end of the stick that doesn't have the PVA nugget, and instead of pushing it down the length of the stick, I'm going to push it out through the side of the stick. We can now loop on our rig and gently tease it into the stick, pulling the hook link through until that piece of putty just touches the side of the stick and doesn't go inside of it. And now you can see that little piece of putty is just sat there on the outside of the stick. It will now become clear why we inserted that half PVA nugget at one end of the stick. It means that we can insert the hook point into the PVA nugget for 2 reasons. One is it avoids any potential tangles and ensures that our rig will be sitting perfectly on the lake bed, but it also avoids the potential of that hook point sticking into one of the pieces of nut within the stick. As you can see here, once the stick hits the lake bed, the PVA mesh begins to melt and dissolve in the water. The nugget lifts the hook bait up slightly away from any debris on the bottom, and just like the PVA mesh, melts away in the water, leaving the hook bait to slowly fall and land within the contents of the stick. With the hook bait now perfectly presented with an enticing mouthful of food, the stick begins to do its thing. You can even see particles now not only rising and falling from the mix, but also suspended above it. So there you go, the PVA stick. Brilliant for preventing tangles in your hook link, but also adding masses of attraction to your presentation. Don't forget, we're here to help you catch more fish. So if you've got any questions about this presentation and PVA sticks, please leave them in the comments box below and we will get back to you. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification button so you know when the next video is coming out. If you don't subscribe to the channel yet, please hit that button below. Subscribe to the channel, we'd really appreciate it. If you'd like to find out more about the Nut Crush, it's part of our bait focus playlist and I'll leave a link to that playlist here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.